Welcome to Hiring Trends in 2025. Today is sponsored by our partners over at the Workforce Development Board of Riverside County, who you will hear from in a moment. But my name is Anna Manzano. I'm the digital media and event strategist here at the California Employers Association. And we just want to welcome you in and say thank you for joining us live this morning. So before we get into today's training, I have just a couple details to go over with you. So as you see, your audio is muted for today's presentation, but there are going to be lots of opportunities and invitations to engage during today's training. If you have any questions about the content, you can just put those into the chat box at any time and we will address them as we go. I will be here the whole time supporting Jessica, watching that chat box and Q&A for you. So if there's something that brings up that's a great discussion point, we'll take care of it for you. So I will be putting the PDF of today's slide deck into the chat box shortly. Once you see that PDF icon and file name pop up, you can click that to download locally to your drive. Again, I'll be watching that chat box, so if you have any issues accessing it, you can drop your email over to me and I'm happy to send that to you that way. As you saw when you logged on, this webinar is being recorded and the team over at Riverside County will be reaching out to you all when it is available for playback. Last thing, at the end of today's session, there will be an invitation to share your feedback with us. So here at CEA, our mission is to bring employers peace of mind, and our goal is to make sure that we are meeting and hopefully exceeding your expectations with trainings like this, as well as our entire suite of resources. So if you could take a minute at the end to complete a very brief 5-question, it's a multiple choice survey, generally takes about a minute to complete, but if you could share that minute with us, we would greatly appreciate your time. So as I mentioned, today's webinar is sponsored by our partners over at Riverside County. Today, we are so privileged to have Jason Tang, who is a development manager there, with us today to share more about those resources available to employers like you. Jason?
Thank you so much, Anna. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. We're always super grateful for our partners at California Employers Association to provide great services to the employers in Riverside County, such as the HR hotline that you can see on your screen. That is a free service that you can use at any time to get any of the questions that you have answered. And it's been a wonderful thing for employers to get the answers that they need. And then they also provide these wonderful webinars that are free to you, the employer. And today we have a great session as we talk about skills-based hiring. As I talk to a lot of employers, a lot of employers have talked about the difficulty they have in filling positions, and then they have multiple reasons, whether it's hey, it's the generation, or hey, there's so many government handouts they don't need to work, or whatever the reason may be. But how often do we look at the barriers that we as employers put up that may cause people not to apply for the position? Are we requiring things in our job listings that really aren't a requirement for the job to get done? Or are we looking at skills more than education or whatever it may be? So today's webinar is a great opportunity to really self-reflect on what we're doing as employers and then how we can better attract job seekers to the positions that we have open. So it's going to be a wonderful webinar, and we're excited to get that going. And so, Anna, without further ado, I'll send it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, for sharing more. And of course, for sponsoring the series this year. Jason is going to drop his information into the chat so that you can indicate that. But this slide is obviously included in that PDF that I'll be dropping into the chat shortly so that you can take note of that HR hotline. And again, thank you to Riverside team for providing that for you all. So now I'd love to introduce our trainer today. We are joined by Jessica Rivera, our training and coaching director, who will be leading us. So Jessica, it is all yours.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Jason. Welcome, everybody. Pleasure to be with everyone today and looking forward to spending some time with you. Just a little bit about who we are. We're excited about our partnership with Riverside County to support you, employers in California in the Riverside County area. And we are a human resources, services, and solutions organization. So we get to work with employers throughout the state of California every single day. And we also work with employers outside of California who have employees here in California. As we know, there's a lot of things always changing with rules, regulations, laws. So we provide our employers that peace of mind. So I encourage you, we have human resources, subject matter experts on our staff. Take advantage of that hotline. If you find yourself in a situation, perhaps on leaves of absences, or perhaps on wage and hour, or if there's something, I have had this show up, how do I handle it? we can provide you guidance because the folks that we have to support you are very skilled, very knowledgeable, and their whole careers have been in human resources. So take advantage of that resource that Riverside County has supplied to you, and allow us to give you that peace of mind when you need it. Also, our attorneys make us say that we're not attorneys, and that we will provide you guidance based on what's happening in California. And if we find that you've called us and perhaps you have a situation that's a little more complex, we'll let you know that too and say perhaps it would be best for you to consult with your attorney before you take any next steps. So something to keep in mind also. So again, take advantage of that resource that is so generously provided by the County of Riverside. What we'll cover today: we're going to be talking about a few things, some of the hiring trends that we're seeing. As I mentioned, we're working with employers every single day. Ways to elevate your own hiring process at your organization. What are some of those things you can do? I was sharing earlier today with Anna and Jason that I was on a call earlier today talking with human resources folks in other parts of the country. And that hiring process is still tough to do, finding that right talent. So wherever we are, it continues to be a challenge finding that qualified person. Also, how do we get it right from the start? How do we make sure that when we do hire someone that we handle their onboarding? Things like that are so important. And then where else can I find talent? Where can I find that hidden talent? If my job post isn't working, what else can I do? What do I need to be aware of moving forward? With that in mind, we are hearing, how much Jason just mentioned it also, that 2025 is really the year of skill-based hiring. AI, artificial intelligence is part of that, along with data that we're seeing lots of changes in the last several months. And we're looking at people now with their proven past experience that I'll talk a little bit more about as we recruit for that qualified talent and hopefully the best talent and getting that best talent that's on the market. Also, when we focus on their capabilities, past performance, proven abilities, experiences, versus just credentials, it allows us to have a bigger pool to select from. And so I'll spend a little bit of time also, but we're hearing more and more about this in today's marketplace, in today's workplace. So I have a poll for you, and I'd like to ask you if you could take a moment and fill this out. When you take a look at what challenges you currently experience when it comes to hiring, which one of these are showing up for you? Give me just a moment and I will put this up for you. I would really value your insights on what you're experiencing in the area. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Give everyone a few more seconds. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at what you said. Wow. Hang on just a moment. Let me share these with you. What we are seeing is that skill gap, which is not surprising. We hear a lot about that. The ghosting. We've heard that for the past few years. Managing that recruiting process can also be a challenge. I'll spend a little bit of time on that today. And then the competition. We're in competition with everyone else when we post that job ad, when we're looking for that top talent. So we hear a lot of that from employers currently. So it's not unusual to hear that from you also in Riverside County. Thank you. So some of the top recruitment challenges that we heard about too, and exactly what you just shared with me on the poll, that low number of applicants. Now, sometimes we will get a lot of applicants, but maybe a small handful are even qualified, or as I like to say, they actually read the ad to see what was necessary, what the company needed before they applied. So the low number of qualified applicants is a big deal. Also, that competition. We're in competition with all other employers in our industry, and some of those industries can overlap without a problem. Things like marketing can also, marketing works in all industries. Also, the candidate ghosting, and this is something we've been hearing a lot about the last few years, is people just not getting back with us. They're not responding, even though they've applied for a role. When I was doing a lot of recruiting a few years ago, a lot of folks would post their resume, they would apply online for a role. When I would reach out to them, crickets, heard nothing. And it was really frustrating because whether I would call them, text them, or email them, nothing. And you wonder why people even bother to apply if they're not going to respond. It can be frustrating from a recruiter's perspective. So here are some of the most utilized from SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Management. Some of the things that are most utilized when it comes to recruiting in 2024 and continuing in 2025, using social media. That will give us a reach, which I know many of you are aware of already, that sometimes we don't have. And some of these sites are free. Things like LinkedIn, being able to use some of the LinkedIn resources to get your word out, especially if you're recruiting for a professional role, where you'll find a lot of folks on LinkedIn who are in those professional roles, engineering, medicine, things of that nature. Also, looking at my compensation. How am I showing up? Do I need to do a market analysis of what I'm paying people right now? And again, understanding the range too, because in California, we do have to give that range of what that salary is going to be when we're posting for a job. Based on the number of employees that we have, of course. But when we think about that, are we within that range? Are we being quite transparent about it? Because in working with job seekers over the years and helping them in their own career transitions, what they've shared is it's so hard sometimes to apply, to get a job, to do all of that work. And then I find out towards the end that they're not going to offer enough for me to even pay my bills. So that a compensation question comes up quite a bit, and being very transparent about it. The culture, the work culture, which I'll spend some time on also, promoting that. Also, your advertising, are you expanding it? Are you looking in different places to post your ad? Other things too that companies are paying a lot of attention to is keeping the people that I have, increasing my retention efforts, making sure that I can keep my own existing employees feeling good about the company, good about their work, and seeing that they have a future with us. Also, the application process, are we making it easy to go through that whole experience? Collaborating with educational institutes and other bodies who can help you expand your reach and help promote your company and the opportunities it offers. Using an employee referral program. I mentioned earlier, I was at a meeting earlier today with a lot of human resources folks from all over the country, and they were talking about the employee referral program and how they find it to be very beneficial, and they incent their employees to send us the people that you know who would work with our company in a positive way, successful way. And I found my personal experience when I have an employee referral program that most employees will not send you just anyone. If they're going to put their name on someone, they're going to make sure they're going to send you the best. And then also training internal employees for hard to fill positions, thinking about our own succession planning too, as we think about hiring trends and the people we already have that we can work with. Some of the other recruiting trends is that rise of skill-based hiring. And when I think about some of the positions I've held and some of the folks that I've talked to over the past several months, is sometimes it's really hard to find that, I used to call it the unicorn, that person that has every single qualification that I need. And because maybe some of those are, I have required of certain things that I have to have. And in today's world, when we look at the credential side of it, if I have someone who's been doing a job for 5 years very successfully, but maybe they don't have that college degree, is that something I have to really think about? Because they've proven to me, or their past experience, their resume shows they've already done the job and have done it very successfully, and taking that into consideration. But also other credentials that people may ask for. So something to consider thinking about even more, and having conversations in your company about it too. Artificial intelligence, recruiting, what's out there now. Employee advocacy, back to that employee referral piece, flexibility. This is probably the number one, if not the number one, that I've seen for the past few years. Gallup just came out with another survey that said one of the top things that people look at before joining a company ties into that culture. Is there that workplace flexibility? Are they concerned with my well-being, my wellness, my life-work balance? That is incredibly important. And prospects will ask you about that. They'll ask you specific questions about what that looks like and what the company does for that. That data-driven approach, taking a look at what's out there for us, taking a look at all the factors. AI is great, but it's not a human being. We'll look at the whole picture. And then also the focus on the job seekers, that experience for them. And I'll spend some time talking about that. And when we think about preferred and required, again, it's important enough to emphasize this in today's world, because we're finding time and time again that not just in recruiting, but also with our existing employees, taking a look at that whole picture. What are they bringing to the party? Interesting statistics I read a few years ago that when we look at people who will apply for a job, if they see all required and very little preferred, some may not apply unless they have 60-70% of those qualifications. But in reality, if you have, again, someone who's got that experience that's transferable to your role, those skills, those are worth looking at. The top skill that we hear from employers today is top two skills, actually. I need employees who are excellent with communications and conflict navigation. Those are two of the top skills I hear time and time again. So taking a look at the whole picture and really rethinking, what are those required and what are those preferred skills that would be good to have, nice to have, yet if they don't have them, I can work with that and grow them into that if I need to. So another poll for you, another question asking you, do you use any type of AI at all for recruiting today? And let me just go back and bring that poll up for us. Let's see, here we go. Any type of AI at all? Good. All right. So let's share this. So as you can see, it's about a 75-25. 75% don't yet, and 25% do. It's not slowing down. AI is not slowing down. It's continuing to evolve. Every day we look and there's new entrants into the AI space, and we're going to continue to see that. So when we think about some of the tools that we've used in the past, if they're not working for us, are there some other things that we can do to, again, expand our reach, put out a more quality, compelling job posting, find ways to promote our company and our brand so people do want to respond, that they do know about us. And obviously, it says here 70% of companies will be using AI for hiring in 2025. And one of the things I do want to say to recruiters, to people who have as one of their primary functions, whether you're a hiring manager or you're in HR, is there's no substitute for humans. We're going to see things on resumes if we have an applicant tracking system that will screen people in or out based on what their qualifications are. They're not a substitute for eyes on a resume. We see things that we can connect dots, that we can say this would apply. Maybe I can grow this person into this role. I can work with this information versus many times with some of these other systems, it's pretty black and white. And keeping that in mind, that there's no substitute for humans and our eyes and our thinking, because AI doesn't think on its own. It draws all the information in and it'll make the decisions based on how it's set up. So how it's being used today, many of them are using it to generate job descriptions. If you haven't had a chance to use it, one that's very popular right now, ChatGPT, it's probably received the most press these days, and it's free. You can get a basic subscription for no cost. It can give you some great job descriptions. And of course, you're not going to use it as the end all for everything. You have to be mindful and have guidelines around what you use ChatGPT, because you don't want to be accused of plagiarism or copyright infringement. But it can actually give you some great insights into some job descriptions, because it draws from everything that's out there on the internet already. And you may already have maybe an outline of a job description that you're thinking about, or you may think, gosh, we haven't updated this in quite some time. It's time to do it now. You can query ChatGPT to give you a sample job description for a customer service rep in retail and see what that comes up with. But using it, again, is, I call it starter dough. Some of us are great writers at the beginning. We can do it from scratch. Others of us can really, we're fabulous editors. We can work with a document and make it our own. So that's one thing that we're hearing quite a bit, that people are using it and they're complimenting. They're complimenting, for example, ChatGPT for some really good insights on job descriptions. Also, customizing target job posting to specific groups. You can actually ask ChatGPT, where are some of the best organizations to post this job for this industry and for these specific set of skills? And it can give you some ideas. Now, one thing I will say is that it's not always 100% current. There may be some new entrants when you ask ChatGPT a question, but it will give you some good insights and perhaps some things you haven't thought about, or places you can go that you hadn't thought about yet. Also, using it to help AI, using it to help screen applicants, where I was mentioning earlier. It's good to kind of give you an idea, because as I mentioned, sometimes people apply for a job and I'm convinced they didn't even read the ad. They just threw their resume in there because they don't have one qualification for the job. And so it's great for that. But for those that they have some, you want to have that set of eyes on it. Because again, when I interview someone, I'm asking them questions. I can pick up pretty quickly as a human being, if they've really had that experience, if I can really transfer that into that role that I'm recruiting for. And then also communicating with applicants during the interview process. It's a great assist if you need to write notes to candidates. You're not going to put any proprietary information into it. You're not going to put names or your company name, but you can ask it something like, can you give me a nice thank you letter? Because I can't hire this person because I have 3 great candidates. I can only hire one. Could you give me a nice thank you letter that I can send to this candidate, because I want to keep them in mind for future positions? So, you never want to burn any bridges. So being able to craft some notes or letters for you that can be very helpful in some of the things we run into when it comes to interviewing. So when we think about elevating our hiring process, I really do like to talk about the fact that it's not an easy job anymore. It really isn't. In the past, in some cases, years ago, you could aggressively wait for the phone to ring when you posted an ad, because you were going to get a lot of candidates. You would get more candidates than you would ever need for one job posting. And it's gone back and forth over the past few years. Now we add into that mix that current job prospects, current job seekers, candidates, they are looking for specific things, like a company that has a strong culture, that recognizes our well-being, our wellness, that will reward us and acknowledge us. I have a career path there. I can grow. I can learn. All of those things are important to candidates today. And there's flexibility for me too with that life-work balance. So now a lot of employers have really reskilled, upskilled their recruiting department. And in some cases, for some recruiters who maybe weren't used to having to go out and find people, actually, I call it hunting, which sounds terrible, but I mean actually aggressively seeking people, whether it's go to ZipRecruiter, take a look at all the resumes that they have there in the space that I'm looking for, going to LinkedIn, things of that nature, but doing things to aggressively find candidates because I'm not getting enough candidates. So thinking about, your own recruiting department, are your folks ready? Are they able to meet those challenges? They may need some additional training in that area so that they can get you those best candidates. And the question for you, and it's not a poll, it's just something if you feel like sharing in the chat box, what is the current recruiting process for your company? And do you have a set process in your company? Is it time to refresh it? If you're not getting the results that you need when you're posting and looking to hire and add to staff or replace people, is it time to reassess that process and say, are there some things that might be barriers for us getting those right candidates? So just something to think about. And again, feel free to put that in the chat box if you'd like to share it with others, and especially if you've revamped it because you've seen the need already. So here's what job candidates want. This is important to them as they're looking for positions today in the job market. They want to hear back from you right away. And when I refer back to those times where there were far more candidates than there were jobs, we had a little bit of leeway as employers because people really didn't have a whole lot of choices. Some years back, it was a tough job market for several years. Today, thank you to Amazon, we live in a right now world. People want right now answers as quickly as possible. And so that timely response is going to be very important to them because thinking about the whole candidate experience, all of these things are important to them. This is what they're telling us. They want clear communication. They want to know what the next steps are. If you've contacted them, if you set up an interview, even if it's a phone interview, what are the next steps in the process once they finish that interview? We don't want to leave them out in no man's land where they don't know what's going to happen next. And they'll be looking. It's been said that the top talent in each industry is on the market for maybe about 10 days. So as employers, we want to move fast. Transparency in the hiring process, being open with people. We're going to be interviewing for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to start paring down those candidates that are going to, go to the next level in the interview process. Being transparent, because we've all been there where we've interviewed for a job and we keep waiting and waiting and waiting to hear something back. And in some cases, they never even called us to say we were out of consideration or they've already hired someone. And so transparency can go a very long way with candidates today. I've already talked about flexible work, what you offer to employees, what they can look forward to, whether it's remote, whether it's hybrid, whether it's 4-day work weeks or every other week you get a day off, whatever it might be, whatever you offer, there's no wrong or right, but they're looking to find out what you offer as a company. And then streamlining the hiring process. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too. When I say, have you taken a look at that process lately? Does it need to be refreshed? If you're losing candidates or you're not getting the best candidates, it might be time to streamline that to move them along faster. And then lastly, mobile-friendly applications are important too. So much of what we do today is on our phones. As we take a look at the recruiting process, there's no right or wrong way. It's what's going to work for you in your industry for what your needs are. After you've posted a job ad, maybe you'll be inundated with replies, hopefully qualified people, or just a few may trickle in. Either way, you're going to want to have that game plan. Okay, as we post this ad, what are we going to do once they start coming in, knowing that we live in a right now world, knowing we need to get someone in right away, knowing that top talent's only on the market for 10 days. So as we take a look at this process, we want to make sure that we're covering all the bases. So with your game plan, we'll screen resumes, job applications. We'll take a look at those too. We'll have them complete that. Is your application current? Is your process current? Conducting screening interviews. Many times when I was recruiting for other companies, I take a look at some of these resumes and I think I put them in the maybe section because I didn't know. And I would screen a lot of them to just say, okay, I want to make sure this is what I see and talk with people, even if it was for 10 or 15 minutes, just to get some clarification. But making sure that the people that I was going to set up for the full interviews had at least part of what I needed, most of what I needed to move forward. And then, of course, conducting your interviews, which we'll spend some time on. and then also checking those references. I can't say enough how important those references are. And when I coach job seekers, I coach them hard on the job references because I want to be able to talk to people who have worked with someone and who can give me insight onto their working abilities, their skills, their knowledge, and their initiative and their overall attitude in working with them. So your recruiting team, as I mentioned earlier, are they at a level where they have the skills to get you that best talent? And if we're working in a world where maybe we haven't had to sell as much in recruiting before, today's recruiting person really has to be a salesperson. They're an ambassador for your company. They're going to promote your company. They're going to speak with passion about your company, with authenticity about your company and all the great things that your company offers. And you want to make sure that those people that are doing that work for you have those skills. And if they don't, that's okay. Maybe it worked for another time in recruiting. But in today's world, you want to have people that are hungry in terms of recruiting to get you those best people, and they show up in a way that they're going to do what it takes to get back to people right away, move them along the process, and be able to set you up for those interviews. Also, adaptability. Are your people who are currently recruiting, are they willing to transition to what's required today? Again, some of us may transition and do it beautifully. Others may feel, this doesn't really fit my skill set anymore, but there's other things I can do for the company. And on experience, it's not an entry-level job. Back in the day when we could aggressively wait for the phone to ring because it would, that's fine. We had more than we needed in candidates. Today's world, not so much. And then the expertise. Do they have the persistence, that resilience? Are they tech savvy? Can they navigate for you in the technology world to get your reach out there as a company? Do they have sales skills? Are they creative? We need creative people to think about how can I find people? I've worked with companies who have looked for months and months for a position, and they had to get really creative to find those that right talent for their company. So when candidates apply, it is important to know everything matters. And even having a conversation with your hiring team, with the folks who will do hiring for each position that you might have, asking the questions around all of these areas and making sure that you have a game plan in place, that for example, that, on the resume screening, is it just one set of eyes? Is it two? What's our overall process? Let's map it out so we're consistent. It's extremely important to be consistent in your hiring practice, that all candidates or all applicants receive consistent treatment from you. And it could be things like, the minute we have our set folks that we're going to pursue, we're going to do this, 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 and this. One of the things that I've put in job ads, and I hope this is helpful for you, but it saved me some work, is in my job postings when I've done recruiting, is I'll put that we will be in contact with all qualified candidates. So you don't have to contact everybody that's applied to the job, especially those that don't have one qualification for that job. They had no business applying. If you put that in there, we will be in contact with all qualified candidates. That gives you that ability to screen, put those people, that are qualified into that, yes, I want to talk to them pile, and they'll know, you're covering yourself that way so that you don't have to contact everyone. So some things to think about: asking the questions on your team, because all of these do matter in the process. I've said this so many times, and it's so important. And I encourage people, when you're creating job postings, if you have a marketing department, get them involved, because we are selling our company. We are selling the position. We want to make sure that people who look at our ads say, I do want to work for that company. And even now, when I go and I look at some of the postings that are out there, job postings from companies, they're still quite vanilla. And what I mean by that, it's all about the company, the company, the company, and it's not about the candidate. We all like our favorite radio station, WIIFM, what's in it for me? And when you create a job posting, you're speaking to all of these candidates, and you want to sell to them why they want to consider your company. So we want to make sure it's not overly long. Reader fatigue happens very quick with job postings, so making sure that it's concise, the most important information is in there. Using plain language. Some of these postings that I see can be so complex that you're kind of, your head spinning, like, I'm not sure what they even mean by this. So making it simple, easy to understand, being very specific on what you have to have, and then also what your preferred qualifications are too. Be mindful of your word choice, making sure that as you read it and look at it, that it's worded in a way that is welcoming and inviting, and that people do want to apply for your company because it talks about your culture. How you do that job ad talks a little bit about your culture. Making sure, obviously, that all of your postings comply with California and federal laws. And then that's where you want to add the zhuzh to it, that I call it. You want to have marketing take a look and perhaps do some things to really make it pop for you. And one of the things too that we find in working with employers is that you have some great benefits. You have some great things that are awesome about working for your company. Are you talking about that? Are you talking about that this person will be working with an incredible team of professionals, knowledgeable, skilled people, and that the culture of your company is one of employees first, customers first? Really promote that, because that's going to get people excited. I worked with one company who, was very generous when it came to benefits. They never put it in the ad or anything about it in the ad. I said, you've got to promote this. This is a big deal. So taking a look and saying, is it telling that whole story? Is that posting one that tells the whole story and makes people say, yes, I want to apply and I want to work for that company? Also focusing on your branding, telling your company's story. People tell us, and we see it in survey after survey, I want to have meaningful work. I want to know that what I do, and if I were to work for this company, what I do really matters. So connecting those dots for people, showing that they do have purposeful, meaningful work. What does your company stand for? What are your values? And then I talked about making sure it's appealing to people. Your ad is appealing, and using the salary range, of course, is really important. Consider having some videos. You could even have videos that your employees talking about the company, those people who really enjoy what they do and really connect to the work that they do. There's a lot of creative things that you can do to make sure that your job posting gets that attention it deserves. And then also thinking about that interview process. Again, remember, everything matters. What is our interview process like? Many of us have probably applied for jobs. We've gone into wherever the location is to be interviewed, and it looks like they're not really prepared for us. They really haven't thought this through. They're kind of all over the place with questions, and you're just asking yourself as a candidate, is everything as unorganized as this interview process is? So you want to make sure that you have a good, solid process. You're prepared for the interviews, and creating that positive experience. Have questions selected ahead of time for candidates coming in, so you're consistent, again, with each candidate that you're interviewing with. And behavioral questions are also excellent. They can help reduce those legal risks. And those are those questions that start with, please share a time where you had a conflict with a teammate. How did you resolve that? What was the result? Or can you tell me a time that you had to plan an event? What were the outcomes of that event? What was really successful? What would you have done differently? And those behavioral questions will tell you what they've done. And you can tell very quickly if people have actually experienced that, because they will talk about it very easily, conversationally, and it gives you, again, insight as to, do they have those skills to do the work that I need them to do? Train your hiring managers to interview also. You want them to show up well for your company. I've had people come back to me when they've spoken with hiring managers, and they said, I really don't know. They talk 90% of the time and hardly ask me any questions. It's got to be that give and take. You want them to ask those questions that will give you those insights and information you don't already have. I already talked about highlighting the company culture. Follow the 80-20 rule, which is we want to have our candidates speak 80% of the time and we speak 20% of the time. There's so much that candidates can share with you, not just in what they say, also in what they don't say. And that can be very helpful in the whole interviewing process. The employee referral program, having people who are your brand ambassadors, again, extending that reach for you, helping you to spread the word and to let your employees be recognized when they do bring you someone really top notch. Our people know a lot of people who know a lot of people who know a lot of people. They can really be helpful when it comes to bringing new talent to your company. We've been very fortunate at our company where when we've needed some positions, people who know people have come to our company because of that. They've worked with them before, they've heard of them before, they've had, as a partner, as a vendor, as a teammate. But having an easy referral process so your folks can submit someone, let them know that they're going to be applying for the job and paying attention to that too. We want to make sure that if an employee refers someone to us, that we pay attention to them. Granted, if they're not anywhere near qualified, we don't have to interview them, but if they are, we want to make sure that we do that well and we show up well as a company for our employee who's referred this person and also to this possible new employee that we might hire. And track that success. Find out what works, what will incent your employees to do this for you. Ask them what's important to them. So getting it right from the start, as I mentioned, there's a lot involved in recruiting. I've spoken now for almost 35 minutes just on the process. So what happens? We've done all of this work. And I've heard numbers that say we spend up to a year's salary just in finding that right person in time, recruiting, interviewing, hiring, training. So it's worth it. Once we get that right person, we want to keep them. So making sure that if we have a good onboarding process, knowing that it's going to boost that retention of your new hires, because that first year is so important, by 82%. So some of the most successful practices that we hear about when it comes to onboarding is, actually pre-boarding a new employee, because it really starts before the first day that they get on their job. You can send them some company swag, things that maybe a company shirt, whatever it might be that you have. You can encourage them to ask questions, send them a schedule so they'll know what to expect. Involve your top leaders and team members when it comes to onboarding. It's important that leaders meet new employees when they come on board. Maybe it's not the first day, or maybe you have to set up a lunch if you're hiring a lot of people so your leaders can engage with them and talk with them, but make them feel like they made that right choice coming to your company, and you have a company of inclusion where everyone matters and everyone has a voice. Focus on that connection. The relationship side with that new employee when you bring them on board, and making sure that it's not just on here's the job, here's all the things you have to do, but helping them to adjust to the social and performance aspects of the job quickly and smoothly, because we've all been new. We've all been a new person at one time or another, and it brings anxiety along with excitement at the same time. So when we think about that, it can make a world of difference for our employees. Check in on them, see how they're doing, how they're feeling about, their first week, their first month, their first 6 months, and then continue to reinforce and talk about that company culture. And these are questions you want to be able to answer when you're going to be hiring and bringing on a new employee and meeting them and talking about the company. You want to be able to answer, what do we believe around here? The culture, what are our values? What are the pillars of our company? What's our mission? What are the strengths? What are my strengths as a leader? Let's talk about your strengths. What do you think, they are for you? What's the role for that employee? How do you pare that down so they can actually connect the dots to what I do connects to success and what I have to do to be able to get good reviews, achieve success here in the company. Who are their partners? Who do they work with? Who are the people they need to be most cognizant of and aware of? And then lastly, what's their future like? Talking about what your company culture is around growing people, developing people, offering professional training for them, coaching, whatever it might be. What are we doing as a company to upskill our employees to get them to levels of greater responsibility in the future? And then also, here's just some feedback when it's done really, really well, what people have said, helping them understand the company. They know who to reach out to, and they feel good about success in their job because people have taken the time to talk them through this. They've taken the time and they've made them feel welcome. Their desk was ready. All their paperwork was done. They had lunch with their team. All of those things are really important. People don't always remember what we've said, but they always remember how we've made them feel. And that whole onboarding process can be so important to make sure that you just continue to confirm to that new employee they picked the right company. They chose the best one to work for. And then also some things to consider. And it was interesting. I just saw something in the news today where there's a shortage of air controllers, and they're saying if you are retired and you want to consider coming back to work, let us know, the U.S. government. And so consider retirees for some other talent too. Many times there are people who have retired. They thought they really wanted to retire, but then they find that, when they've retired, it's not all set up to be, and I want to keep busy. I want to be doing things. So consider people who can come and work for you, perhaps part-time. I've talked about the skills over degrees enough. Collaborate with educational institutions and, of course, your partner. Riverside County Workforce Center, who's sponsoring this webinar today, they can help you with that talent. They speak to job seekers all of the time. You never know. I always say it only takes one connection, one person for that job. It only takes that one right person, and they could very well have it for you. And then, of course, second chance hiring, which is a practice for some where employers give individuals with criminal records an opportunity to get employment and reintegrate into the workforce, and it helps people to rebuild their lives. So thinking about what else can I do? Be creative. And then identifying your employees' hidden talents. Folks, one thing that scares me all the time is that the statistic that I hear that we really only use about 20% of our employees' potential at work. 20%. Imagine if we could grow that, if we could build that, if we could increase it to 50, 60, 70%. But even your existing employees, identify what their strengths are. That's by having conversations. There's things you can do to grow them. Looking at what their interests are. You may have someone who's in customer service, but they really want to go into sales. And we've never really asked them. We know they're good with customers, but they have skills that would really be valuable in your sales force. Having those conversations with them, performance management check-in conversations, asking those questions. What are you most passionate about here at work? What excites you the most about your role? And then also considering those mentorships. Many times we want to maybe perhaps bring in a manager, and maybe we think we may not have on our existing staff someone who can do it. But the more that we can check in, we open up opportunities. And thinking for our own employees, every one of us had someone in our lives who saw something in us before we saw it ourselves. And so being able to do that can open up some additional opportunities. So thinking about optimizing your hiring in 2025, know your brand, talk about your brand. What are you known for? What are you known as? What are the great things about your company? Getting creative, new ways to attract talent for your organization, making sure the experience is good for the candidates, and you're leveraging technology, the tools that are out there for you to help you with that. Empowering new employees to hit the ground running. And this is especially important because when we start working for a company, maybe we've come from an environment that perhaps I didn't have a lot of empowerment. There wasn't a lot of inclusion. My voice didn't really matter. And I've actually had people tell me that, I've come from a company culture where we knew for a fact that our opinions didn't matter. They weren't ever considered. So when you have a new employee joining your company, talk about those things that are really important to the company, leveraging everybody's point of view, their perspective, their education, their experiences, the past careers that they've had, bringing it together and actually talking about it and talking about what empowerment looks like for new employees, letting them know that initiative is highly valued in your organization. Even if it's a horrible idea, I still want to hear it, because who knows, there might be some pieces of that we can integrate into other things that we're doing. So having that conversation too in your organization, how does it look for a new employee coming in? We've done a great job at hiring, onboarding, but how do we bring in that whole piece about empowering them to take that initiative and to hit that ground running and feel that they can bring up ideas, they can ask questions, they can get to know people in other departments and really challenge us sometimes as leaders and say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing it this way? And encouraging that kind of talk. So that can also go a very long way, because I found people are brilliant, and when they can bring all of themselves, their true self, their authentic self to work, wow, the power with that, we can get from utilizing 20% of that potential to a lot more. And then lastly, as we wrap up today, because I always want to leave room for any questions you might have, as you think about all the things that I've talked about, what might be one thing that you could take action on today that would enhance your recruiting and hiring practices for 2025? It's been said by an author, philosopher, Leo Buscaglia, to know and not do is not to know. So hopefully some of the things that I've shared with you today will give you some additional insights as to, gosh, maybe we can tweak this, or we can do this, or we've got to get our arms around this a little bit more. We've got to do this. So something that you might do differently, knowing what you know now after just sharing some of this information. And then lastly, I'd like to just open it up. Any questions at all, or anything you want to share with the group that could be valuable to the rest of the group that you'd like to share on what we've discussed? And we'll be on for a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and bring Anna on to go ahead, as we're just maybe thinking about that, to go ahead and talk a little bit about the credits that you get for attending today's session.
You got it. So thank you, Jessica, for your time and taking us through that training. I really like this training. It's such a good one. I always learn such good stuff. But if you are joining us for continuing education credits today, your HRCI code 695901, SHRM code 25-P9XVF. You can email us at ceainfo@employers.org or call into your complimentary HR hotline Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. if you need any guidance on what to do with these codes in order to certify for professional development. Again, we want to thank Jason and the entire team behind the scenes at Riverside County for bringing you not just this series of webinars, but the entire suite of resources that you see on your screen available to employers like yourself. Speaking of trainings, I do want to draw your attention to the chat, just in case you haven't seen that. The next training is coming up on March, 26th. And with respect to, recent natural disasters happening all throughout the state, we wanted to put together this new training for you all. So this is a new training that we are, I don't want to use the word excited, but you know what I mean. We're looking forward to providing you with these resources so that should disaster hit, you are better prepared to, protect your business and take care of your employees. So please join us on the 26th. Again, this is complimentary, sponsored by the County of Riverside. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we are hoping that you'll share your feedback with us. So you can choose your own adventure here. You can snap the QR code on your screen with your smartphone, or once you close out of Zoom today, a browser window will pop up. All you have to do is click opt in, and that will help us share the feedback with our partners over at Riverside and collectively make sure that we are meeting and hopefully exceeding your expectations. So with that, I want to say thank you, Jessica, for leading us today and for giving us such a great training. I want to thank you all for joining us live, and we hope to see you on the next training on March 26th. And we'll catch you on that HR support line. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy your day.